Jake Morrison stared at the job offer on his screen and read it 3 times. The pay was too good to be real. Protecting one alien princess for 3 months on New Geneva Station. Easy money, he thought. He had done harder jobs for less pay. He clicked accept before he could change his mind. 3 days later, Jake stood in the docking bay watching the Andromedian ship arrive. The ship was massive and perfectly white like everything the Andromedians made. No scratches, no dents, no signs that real people lived inside it. Jake tugged at his new uniform. The diplomatic service had given him clothes that felt too tight and too clean. Ambassador Cole Harrison walked up beside him. Cole was Jake's old friend from their military days. He looked nervous. Remember, Jake, the Andromedians are not like us. They do everything by rules. They plan every minute of every day. They hate surprises. Got it. Keep the princess safe and follow the rules. And try not to start any wars. Jake laughed. When have I ever started a war? Cole gave him a look. Do you want the full list? The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake watched as the Andromedian delegation walked out in perfect formation. They all wore the same gray uniforms and moved at exactly the same speed. Their faces showed no emotion at all. Commander Thex Mordan led the group. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and silver eyes. He looked at Jake like he was examining a broken piece of equipment. You are the human security specialist? Thex asked. His voice was flat and cold. Jake Morrison, pleased to meet you. Thex did not look pleased. Your species has an unusual approach to protection duties. We will observe your methods with interest. Jake was about to ask what that meant when she walked out of the ship. Princess Zara Velnathi was nothing like the other Andromedians. She had the same pale blue skin and silver eyes, but she moved differently. Where the others walked in straight lines, she seemed to glide. Where they kept their faces blank, she looked around with obvious curiosity. When her eyes met Jake's, she smiled. Jake had never seen an Andromedian smile before. It was beautiful and completely unexpected. You must be my new protector, she said. Her voice was musical, nothing like the flat tones of the others. I have heard interesting things about human security methods. I hope they were good things. Your Highness, please just call me Zara. And yes, they were very interesting indeed. Commander Thex stepped between them. Princess, we must proceed to your quarters immediately. The schedule does not allow for delays. Zara's smile faded slightly, but she nodded. Of course, Commander. We must always follow the schedule. Jake spent the next hour learning about Andromedian security protocols. Everything was planned down to the second. Guards stood at exact positions. Doors locked and unlocked at specific times. No one moved without permission. No one spoke unless spoken to. It was the most boring thing Jake had ever seen. This is how we have protected our royalty for 1,000 years, Thex explained. No harm has ever come to a member of the royal family under our watch. Impressive, Jake said. He meant it. The system was perfect. Too perfect. That night, Jake set up his own security around the princess's quarters. He placed motion sensors in the hallways and camera monitors at his desk. He checked every door and window twice. At midnight, he settled in for his watch. At 3 in the morning, the alarms went off. Jake ran to the princess's room and found the door still locked from the inside. He used his emergency codes to open it. The room was empty. The window was still sealed. The air vents were too small for a person to crawl through. Princess Zara had simply vanished. Jake grabbed his comm unit. Morrison to security. The princess is missing. Impossible, came Thex's voice. Our systems show no breach. No one has left her quarters. Well, she's not here. Jake ran through the corridors, checking every camera feed. Nothing. He searched the dining areas, the meeting rooms, the gardens. Nothing. How could someone disappear from a locked room on a space station? He found her an hour later on the observation deck. She was sitting by the huge windows watching the stars. She had somehow gotten past 3 security checkpoints and 2 locked doors. She looked perfectly calm. Beautiful view, she said without turning around. Jake walked slowly toward her, trying to figure out how she had gotten there. How did you do it? Do what? Get out of your room. Get past security. Get here. She finally looked at him. That same incredible smile. I wanted to see the stars. So I came to see them. That's not an answer, isn't it? She stood up gracefully. I was studying human recreational habits. I read that humans often come to places like this when they cannot sleep. I wanted to understand why. Jake stared at her. You escaped from maximum security just to look out a window. I prefer to think of it as exploring. His comm unit buzzed. Commander Thex's angry voice filled the air. Morrison! Report your status immediately. Jake looked at the princess. She was watching him with those bright silver eyes, waiting to see what he would do. He could drag her back to her room and lecture her about security. He could report exactly what happened and watch Thex explode with anger. Instead, he said, Princess located safe and unharmed. Returning to quarters now. How did she breach our security? Jake looked at Zara again. She was still smiling like they shared a secret. Still investigating. Morrison out. As they walked back through the empty corridors, Jake tried to understand what had just happened. The princess had done something impossible and acted like it was perfectly normal. She had broken every rule and seemed proud of it. This can't happen again, he said. The security protocols exist for a reason. Of course, she agreed. I understand completely. But as she said it, she gave him a look that suggested she understood something very different from what he meant. Jake had protected politicians, military officers, and corporate executives. He had faced assassins, terrorists, and hostile aliens. But as he watched Princess Zara disappear into her quarters with that mysterious smile, he realized this assignment was going to be unlike anything in his career. He had no idea how right he was. The next morning, Jake found Princess Zara's room empty again. This time she had left a note written in perfect English. Gone to study human breakfast customs. Please do not worry. Jake found her in the station's main dining area, sitting with a group of cargo workers. She was asking them questions about something called pancakes and taking notes on a small device. When she saw Jake approaching, she waved happily. Jake! Perfect timing. Did you know that humans eat sweet things for breakfast? This seems very illogical, but these gentlemen say it makes them happy. The cargo workers looked uncomfortable when they saw Jake's security uniform. They mumbled excuses and quickly left. Princess Zara watched them go with obvious disappointment. You scared them away, she said. I'm trying to keep you safe. You can't just wander around talking to strangers. Why not? They were very informative. They told me about something called coffee that humans drink to wake up their brains. Is this true? Jake rubbed his forehead. He already felt a headache coming. Your Highness, you have to stay in your quarters unless Commander Thex approves your activities. I see. She stood up and smoothed her dress. Of course. I will return immediately. But the next day she escaped again, and the day after that. Each time Jake found her somewhere different. The market level, where she was learning about human shopping habits. The recreation center, where humans played games that served no practical purpose. The art gallery, where she stared at paintings for hours. Commander Thex was furious. Your human methods are clearly inadequate, he told Jake. Perhaps we should request a different protector. Give me more time, Jake said. I'm still learning her patterns. Patterns? She has no patterns. She moves without logic or planning. This is exactly why humans cannot be trusted with important responsibilities. But Jake was starting to think Thex was wrong. After a week of chasing Princess Zara around the station, Jake began to notice something. She didn't escape randomly. She always went to places where humans gathered. She always stayed long enough for him to find her. And she always seemed to be waiting for him when he arrived. The breakthrough came on the 8th day. Instead of setting up barriers to keep her in, Jake tried to think like her. If he wanted to study humans, where would he go? What would interest someone who had never seen people live freely? That morning he didn't wait for the alarms. He went straight to the market district and bought 2 cups of coffee. Then he sat down at a small table and waited. 20 minutes later, Princess Zara appeared around the corner. She stopped when she saw him sitting there with the coffee cups. For a moment she looked genuinely surprised. Then that beautiful smile spread across her face. You were expecting me, she said. Lucky guess. Jake pushed one of the cups toward her. Want to try some human wake-up brain juice? She sat down across from him and picked up the cup carefully. This is the coffee substance? That's right. Fair warning, it's pretty strong. She took a small sip and her eyes went wide. Then she coughed and made a face that was so perfectly human that Jake laughed out loud. This is terrible, she said. Yeah, it takes some getting used to, but humans drink it anyway. Why? Because sometimes we do things that don't make logical sense. We do them because we like how they make us feel, or because other people do them, or just because we want to try something new. Princess Zara took another sip, smaller this time. Your species is very strange. So I've been told. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the market activity around them. Humans were buying things they didn't need, talking loudly about nothing important, and generally being inefficient in every possible way. Commander Thex says this chaos is why humans will never achieve true civilization, Zara said quietly. What do you think? She was quiet for a long moment. I think Commander Thex has never seen anything beautiful that wasn't planned in advance. Jake looked at her more carefully. Is that why you keep escaping? To see unplanned things? I keep escaping because my life has been planned from the moment I was born. Every day, every hour, every conversation. I know exactly what I will be doing on my 100th birthday. She stared into her coffee cup. But humans make choices, real choices about real things. I wanted to understand how that feels. And it feels terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Jake's comm unit buzzed. Commander Thex's voice was sharp with anger. Morrison! The princess has escaped again. Find her immediately. Jake looked at Zara. She was watching him with those bright silver eyes, waiting to see what he would say. Morrison here. I'm with the princess now. She's safe. Where are you? The market district. She wanted to observe human commercial activities. Bring her back at once. Actually, Commander, I think this is valuable cultural research. Maybe we could extend her observation time. There was a long pause. You are encouraging this behavior? Jake looked at Zara again. She was trying not to smile. I'm adapting my protection methods to work with the princess's research interests. After Thex cut the connection, Zara leaned forward. That was very diplomatic. That was very stupid. Thex is probably planning to have me fired. Will you be in trouble? Jake shrugged. Probably. But you're right about choices. I chose to trust my gut instead of following the rules. Your gut? It's a human expression. It means following your instincts instead of logic. Instincts. She said the word carefully like she was tasting it. Andromedians do not trust instincts. We trust data and planning and proven methods. How's that working for you? She laughed, and the sound was so genuine and joyful that other people in the market turned to look. Not very well, apparently, since I keep running away from it. Over the next few days, Jake changed his entire approach. Instead of trying to contain Princess Zara, he started predicting where her curiosity would take her. Instead of following her, he began arriving first. Each time he brought coffee for both of them. Their conversations during these meetings taught Jake more about alien culture than any briefing ever had. Andromedians were raised to be efficient in all things. They didn't make art unless it served a function. They didn't form friendships unless they were strategically useful. They didn't laugh unless something was objectively amusing according to their cultural guidelines. But humans, Zara told him one morning as they watched a group of children play in the station's park, seem to do everything for emotional reasons. They make music that serves no purpose except to make them feel things. They keep pets that require resources but provide only companionship. They tell stories that everyone knows are not true just because they enjoy hearing them. Does that seem wrong to you? It seems impossible to me. How do you function as a society when everyone acts on feelings instead of logic? Jake watched the children playing. They were making up rules as they went along, changing the game whenever they got bored, laughing at jokes that made no sense. We function because we care about each other. Logic tells you what's efficient. Feelings tell you what's important. Zara was quiet for a long time after that. That evening, Commander Thex confronted Jake in the security office. Your methods are unacceptable. The princess has become completely unpredictable. She's learning about human culture. Isn't that why she's here? She is here to observe and report, not to participate in chaotic human activities. Jake realized that what Thex saw as security failures, he was beginning to see as something else entirely. Princess Zara wasn't just escaping her room. She was testing whether anyone would understand what she really wanted. She was hoping someone might see that she was a brilliant, curious person, trapped in a life that had no room for brilliance or curiosity. And for some reason, she had decided to test him. The news report played on every screen across the galaxy. Andromedian princess keeps escaping human security, read the headlines. The footage showed Princess Zara sitting in a cafe, talking with human civilians while Jake stood nearby looking confused. Jake watched the report from his quarters and felt his stomach drop. This was bad. Really bad. His comm unit rang immediately. Ambassador Harrison's face appeared on screen, and he did not look happy. Jake, we need to talk. Now. An hour later, Jake sat in a conference room facing a panel of very angry officials. Commander Thex was there, along with several Andromedian diplomats and human administrators. They all looked at Jake like he had personally started a war. In 3 weeks, said Administrator Walsh, you have failed to prevent 17 security breaches. The princess has been photographed in unauthorized locations, speaking with unvetted individuals, and engaging in activities that were not approved by either government. She hasn't been hurt, Jake said. Not even a scratch. That is not the point, Commander Thex interrupted. Her behavior reflects poorly on both our species. Andromedian royalty does not sit in common eating establishments drinking stimulants with laborers. Maybe they should, Jake muttered. The room went completely silent. Admiral Zhang, the senior human representative, leaned forward. Excuse me? Jake knew he should apologize and keep his mouth shut. Instead, he heard himself saying, With respect, sir, the princess is the happiest I've ever seen an Andromedian. Maybe there's something to be learned from that. The Andromedian delegates started talking angrily in their own language. Commander Thex stood up. This human has clearly been compromised by excessive contact with the princess. We demand his immediate replacement. Now hold on, Ambassador Harrison said. Jake may have unconventional methods, but the princess specifically requested him, and she has come to no harm under his protection. She has been exposed to ideas that threaten the stability of our society, Thex replied. This cannot continue. As the argument escalated around him, Jake wondered where Princess Zara was right now. Probably exploring some new part of the station, learning something that would horrify the officials in this room. The thought made him smile despite everything. That evening, Jake found Zara in the observation lounge, but she wasn't looking at the stars. She was working on a small computer device, typing rapidly. When she saw him approaching, she quickly closed the screen. Secret princess business? Jake asked. She looked guilty. Not exactly. Come on. After everything we've been through, you're going to keep secrets from me? Zara hesitated, then opened her computer again. I have been writing a report, but not the kind they expect me to write. Jake sat down beside her and looked at the screen. It was filled with detailed observations about human behavior, but not the dry scientific kind he expected. These notes were full of wonder and curiosity. Listen to this, Zara said, and began reading. Humans possess a remarkable ability to find solutions through methods their own logic tells them should not work. When faced with problems, they often ignore the most obvious approaches and instead try things that seem random or inefficient. Yet somehow these chaotic methods frequently produce better results than careful planning. That's about us. That's about you. All of you. She scrolled down. Look at this part. Human emotion, which Andromedian science has always classified as inefficient, appears to be their greatest strength. They form bonds that serve no logical purpose but provide motivation that logic alone cannot achieve. They take risks for people they care about even when the chances of success are minimal. Jake stared at the screen. Zara, this could change how our species see each other. Or it could get me declared mentally unfit and sent for rehabilitation. Before Jake could respond, his comm unit exploded with emergency signals. Security alerts flashed red across all screens. A voice echoed through the station. All personnel to emergency stations. Security threat level red. Jake grabbed Zara's hand. We need to get you to a safe room now. They ran through corridors filled with panicking people. Jake's security training kicked in automatically. Keep the principle moving. Trust no one. Get to secure location. But as they reached the market district, Jake realized they were being herded. The crowds were pushing them toward a specific area. The exits were blocked by people who didn't look like regular station residents. Jake's combat instincts started screaming warnings. This way, he said, pulling Zara toward a service corridor. Jake, what's happening? Someone's trying to separate us from help. He checked his weapon and opened the service door. Stay close to me. They moved through the maintenance tunnels beneath the market. Jake could hear footsteps above them and voices speaking in languages he didn't recognize. This wasn't a random security threat. Someone was specifically hunting for them. They emerged in a storage area behind the shops. Jake checked the exits while Zara watched for followers. Everything seemed clear. I think we're safe, Jake said. That's when the first shot hit the wall next to his head. 3 figures in black combat gear appeared from behind the storage containers. They moved with military precision, cutting off escape routes and taking firing positions. Jake pushed Zara behind a pile of crates and drew his weapon. "Princess Zara Velnathi," one of the attackers called out. "You will come with us. The corruption ends now." "Andromedian extremists," Zara whispered. "They think human influence has made me unfit to rule." Jake counted 3 attackers, multiple exit points, and dozens of civilians who could get hurt if this turned into a firefight. By any logical analysis, their situation was hopeless. The smart thing would be to surrender and hope for rescue. Instead, Jake did something completely illogical. He activated the emergency fire suppression system. Water and foam exploded from the ceiling, filling the area with chaos. Jake grabbed Zara and ran toward the service tunnels while the attackers stumbled through the artificial storm. It was stupid, random, and inefficient. It worked perfectly. They escaped through the tunnels and made it to a security checkpoint before the attackers could follow. Station security arrested the 3 extremists and found evidence of a larger plot, involving both human and Andromedian radical groups. Later, as they sat in the medical bay getting checked for injuries, Zara looked at Jake with something new in her silver eyes. "You saved my life by ignoring every rule of logical tactical response," she said. "Yeah, well, humans are good at that. The fire suppression system. How did you know it would work?" Jake shrugged. "I didn't. I just figured that if I couldn't predict what I was going to do, neither could they." Zara stared at him for a long moment. "That is the most human thing I have ever heard. The attack changed everything." Security footage of Jake risking his life to protect an alien princess was broadcast across the galaxy. Suddenly, the story wasn't about a failed bodyguard and an escaping princess. It was about a human who had chosen to protect someone he cared about, regardless of species or politics. But Jake knew that the real danger was just beginning. The extremists had been caught, but the ideas that motivated them were still out there. And Princess Zara's report about human culture was exactly the kind of thing that could make those ideas even more dangerous. As he watched her work on her computer, adding notes about what had happened that day, Jake realized that protecting her now meant more than keeping her safe from physical harm. It meant helping her decide whether the truth she wanted to tell was worth the price they might both have to pay for telling it. For the first time since arriving on New Geneva Station, Princess Zara could not escape. The secure quarters were small but comfortable, with 2 bedrooms, a common area, and enough supplies for a week. Jake had been assigned to stay with her while investigators figured out who else might be involved in the attack. They were alone together with nowhere to run and nothing to do but talk. "I never thanked you," Zara said on the second day. She was sitting by the small window watching ships come and go from the docking bays. "For what?" "For saving my life. For not treating me like a problem to be solved. For buying me coffee every morning even though you knew I would escape again." Jake sat down across from her. "You don't need to thank me for doing my job." Is that what it was? Just your job? The question hung in the air between them. Jake looked at Zara's face, really looked at it. Her silver eyes were bright with intelligence and something else he was afraid to name. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the starlight from the window. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with her being an alien princess and everything to do with who she was as a person. "No," he said finally. "It stopped being just my job a long time ago." She smiled, and Jake felt his heart do something that probably violated several diplomatic protocols. "I was hoping you would say that," she said softly. They spent the next few hours talking in a way they never had before. Without the pretense of security protocols or cultural observation, they could simply be themselves. Zara told him about growing up in a palace where every conversation was recorded and every friendship was evaluated for political usefulness. "I was taught that emotions were inefficient," she said. "That personal attachments made you weak and easy to manipulate. But watching humans, I realized that emotions are what make you strong. They give you reasons to fight when logic says you should surrender." "Is that what happened with your escapes? You were fighting?" "I was trying to understand what it felt like to choose something for yourself. To want something just because you wanted it, not because it was assigned to you." She looked at him directly. "And then I met you and I wanted to understand something else entirely." "What?" "What it felt like to care about someone who might care about me in return." Jake felt something shift inside his chest. "Zara, I know it's impossible." I know there are rules and protocols and political considerations, but when you pushed me behind those crates and drew your weapon to protect me, I realized that you were willing to risk everything for someone you barely knew. That's not logic. That's not duty. That's something my people don't have a word for. We call it love, Jake said quietly. Love. She said the word carefully like she was learning a new language. Is that what this is? Jake reached across the space between them and took her hand. Her skin was cool and soft and her fingers were trembling slightly. I think it might be. For a moment they just sat there holding hands and looking at each other. Jake had protected dozens of people over the years, but he had never wanted to protect someone the way he wanted to protect Zara. Not just from danger, but from sadness and loneliness and a life that had no room for who she really was. His comm unit buzzed, breaking the spell. Ambassador Harrison's face appeared on the screen and he looked grim. Jake, I need to brief you both on some new developments. We've been analyzing the communications from those attackers. What did you find? The extremist group wasn't working alone. They had inside information from someone high up in the Andromedian government, someone who knew the princess's schedule and security arrangements. Zara went very still. Who? We're still investigating, but it looks like there's a faction within your own government that views this cultural exchange as a threat. They intercepted your reports about human culture and decided that you had been compromised. Compromised how? Jake asked. Harrison hesitated. They believe that extended contact with humans has made the princess unfit to fulfill her royal duties. They want her returned immediately for what they're calling cognitive rehabilitation. Jake felt his blood go cold. What does that mean? It means, Zara said in a voice like broken glass, that they want to erase everything I've learned here. Everything I've felt. They want to make me into what I was before. They can do that? Andromedian medical technology is very advanced. They can suppress memories, modify emotional responses, eliminate what they call unproductive thought patterns. I would return to being the perfect princess they created. Jake stared at her. That's not medical treatment. That's torture. It's perfectly legal under Andromedian law, Harrison said quietly, and as a member of the royal family, she has no right to refuse. After Harrison ended the call, Jake and Zara sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Jake asked the question he was afraid to hear answered. What are you going to do? I don't know. If I return to Andromeda, I lose everything I've discovered about myself, everything I've felt. But if I don't return, it could destroy the peace between our species. Thousands of people could die in a war. There has to be another option. There is one option. I could request asylum with the humans, but that would be treason against my own people. I would never be able to go home again. I would never see my family. And the political consequences. Jake stood up and started pacing. He had spent his whole career following orders and protecting people according to official guidelines. But now looking at Zara sitting by the window with tears in her silver eyes, all of that seemed meaningless. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to stay here. I want to finish my research. I want to continue learning about what it means to make your own choices. She looked up at him. I want to see where this feeling between us might lead. Then that's what we'll do. Jake, you don't understand the consequences. I understand that you're the most intelligent, brave, and beautiful person I've ever met. I understand that watching you discover freedom has been the best part of my life. And I understand that if they take you back and erase who you've become, it will be like watching you die. Zara stood up and walked to him. She reached up and touched his face with her cool fingers. You would really help me request asylum? Even though it could end your career? Even though it might start a war? Jake thought about everything he had learned from watching her escape her carefully planned life. Sometimes the most important choices were the ones that made no logical sense. Yeah, he said, I would. She kissed him then, and it was soft and sweet and tasted like coffee and hope. When they broke apart, Jake realized that protecting her now meant something completely different from what it had meant when this assignment started. It meant helping her choose who she wanted to be, even if that choice changed everything. So what's the plan? He asked. Zara smiled, and it was the brightest, most human expression he had ever seen on an alien face. I have no idea, she said, but I think that's exactly the point. The offer came the next morning. Ambassador Harrison delivered it personally, and Jake could see he was trying hard to hide his excitement. Head of diplomatic security for the entire sector, Harrison said. It's everything you've worked for. Command of your own unit, a permanent position on Earth, and a salary that would make your old military buddies very jealous. Jake stared at the official document. It was perfect. It was exactly the career he had dreamed about since leaving the military. It was also on the other side of the galaxy from wherever Princess Zara ended up. There's just one condition, Harrison continued. You have to be available immediately. The transport leaves tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? I know it's fast, but they need someone in place for the peace talks with the Rigel Confederation. This is big, Jake. This is the kind of assignment that makes careers. Jake looked through the small window toward the quarters where Zara was working on her asylum paperwork. She had been up all night writing statements and preparing for interviews. The process was complicated and could take months to complete. Can I have some time to think about it? Harrison frowned. Jake, opportunities like this don't come along often. And frankly, after everything that's happened with the princess, some people think you need a fresh start. What do you mean? I mean, there are rumors about your relationship with her. Nothing official, but people talk. Taking this promotion would put all that behind you. After Harrison left, Jake sat alone in his temporary quarters and tried to think logically about his future. The promotion was everything he had worked for. Staying on New Geneva meant giving up his career to help an alien princess who might not even be granted asylum. It was a choice between certainty and chaos, between logic and emotion. It was the most human decision he had ever faced. An hour later, Jake found Zara in the station's legal offices, surrounded by paperwork and looking overwhelmed. She looked up when he entered, and her face brightened immediately. How did the meeting with Ambassador Harrison go? She asked. Good. Really good, actually. Jake sat down beside her. They offered me a promotion. Head of diplomatic security. Zara's smile faded slightly. That sounds like an important position. It is. It's also on Earth. They sat in silence for a moment, both understanding what that meant. Finally, Zara spoke. You should take it. It's what you've worked for. Is that what you want me to do? I want you to be happy. I want you to have the career you deserve. I can't ask you to give up everything for someone you've known for a month. Jake looked at her sitting there surrounded by legal documents, trying to navigate a system designed to protect governments rather than people. She was fighting for the right to choose her own life, and she was doing it alone. What if I don't want the career I thought I deserved? What if I want something different now? Jake. What if I want to help you build something new instead of climbing someone else's ladder? Before Zara could answer, the legal office's emergency alarms went off. The main door slid open and Commander Thex walked in, flanked by 2 Andromedian guards in full combat armor. Princess Zara Velnathi, Thex said formally, by order of the Andromedian High Council, you are commanded to return home immediately. Your request for asylum has been denied by your own government. They can't do that, Jake said, standing up. She has the right to request asylum under galactic law. She has no rights that supersede her obligations to her people, Thex replied. She is Andromedian royalty. Her life belongs to her species, not to herself. Zara stood up slowly. What if I refuse to go? Then you will be declared a traitor and taken by force. The transport is waiting. Jake stepped between Thex and Zara. She's under the protection of New Geneva Station. You can't just take her. We have diplomatic immunity and legal authority. Stand aside, human. For a moment, nobody moved. Jake could feel Zara's hand on his shoulder, could hear her breathing, could sense her fear and determination. Thex and his guards stood ready to use force if necessary. The legal officials backed toward the exits, clearly wanting no part of an interspecies incident. Then the office door opened again, and Admiral Zhang walked in with a full security escort. Commander Thex, Zhang said calmly, I'm afraid there's been a development. What kind of development? Zhang activated a portable display showing a news broadcast. The reporter was standing in front of the Andromedian embassy on Earth, and the headline read, Public demands protection for Princess Zara. It seems, Zhang continued, that Princess Zara's report about human culture was leaked to the press. The public response has been significant. The broadcast showed crowds of humans holding signs that read, Protect Princess Zara and freedom to choose. Representatives from dozens of human worlds were calling for her asylum request to be honored. Most importantly, Several influential Andromedian academics were publicly supporting her research and condemning the rehabilitation process. The situation has become politically complex, Zhang said. Perhaps we should discuss alternatives to forced repatriation. What followed was the most intense negotiation Jake had ever witnessed. For 6 hours, human and Andromedian officials argued about jurisdiction, precedent, and political consequences. Lawyers cited treaties that Jake had never heard of. Diplomats made threats that sounded polite but carried the weight of possible war. Through it all, Zara sat quietly, letting others decide her fate. Finally, Jake couldn't stand it anymore. "Stop," he said loudly. "Just stop." Everyone turned to look at him. Jake realized he was about to either solve everything or destroy his life completely. Princess Zara came here to study human culture. She's learned about choice and freedom and what it means to follow your heart instead of your programming. Now you're all sitting here deciding what's going to happen to her without asking what she wants. Her wants are irrelevant, Thex said. She has responsibilities. To who? To a government that wants to erase her mind? To people who see her as property instead of a person? Jake looked around the room at all the officials and lawyers. She's the most intelligent person in this room, and none of you have asked her opinion about her own life. Admiral Zhang leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we let her speak for herself. Zara stood up then, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. I choose to return to Andromeda, she said. Jake felt his heart stop. Zara, but, she continued, I choose to return as an official cultural ambassador, with full diplomatic immunity and the right to continue my research. Jake Morrison will accompany me as my security advisor and cultural consultant. The room exploded in protests from both sides, but Zara kept talking. My research has shown that human adaptability and emotional intelligence are not weaknesses to be corrected, but strengths to be studied and carefully adopted. I propose a formal cultural exchange program that will benefit both our species. Commander Thex stood up angrily. This is unacceptable. You cannot dictate terms to the High Council. I'm not dictating terms, Zara said calmly. I'm offering them a choice. They can accept my proposal and gain valuable insights into human Andromedian cooperation, or they can attempt to force me home and face a public relations disaster that will damage their relationships with dozens of human worlds. Admiral Zhang smiled. That's quite a proposal, Your Highness. I learned it from humans. Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects. It took 3 more days of negotiations, but eventually both governments agreed to Zara's proposal. The Andromedian High Council would allow her to return as a cultural ambassador rather than a prisoner. Jake would resign from human diplomatic service and accept a position as an independent cultural consultant. 6 months later, Jake stood in the gardens of the Andromedian Royal Palace, watching Princess Zara give a presentation to the High Council about human innovation techniques. She was using a holographic display to show how human chaos could be channeled into creative problem-solving. The key insight, she was saying, is that humans use controlled randomness to find solutions that pure logic cannot reach. By deliberately introducing small amounts of uncertainty into our planning processes, we can achieve better results. Several council members were taking notes. Others looked skeptical but interested. Commander Thex sat in the back row, scowling at everything, but even he was paying attention. After the presentation, Zara found Jake in the gardens. She was smiling the same bright smile that had first captivated him on New Geneva Station. How do you think it went? She asked. I think you're slowly converting the most logical species in the galaxy to the philosophy of winging it. Is that bad? Jake pulled her close and kissed her. It's perfect. They walked through the alien gardens together, past flowers that bloomed in mathematical patterns and trees that grew in perfect spirals. Everything around them was beautiful and orderly and completely planned. Do you ever miss the chaos? Zara asked. I'm looking at it, Jake said. You're the most beautiful chaos I've ever seen. Zara laughed, and the sound echoed through the perfect gardens like a promise that some of the best things in the universe could never be planned or predicted. They could only be discovered, one impossible escape at a time. Jake still couldn't predict where Princess Zara would go or what she would do next. But he had learned that some of the best things in life couldn't be protected by following the rules.